Captain Schroeder had learned of the allegations Schindig had made against him at police headquarters when a Gestapo officer arrived on board to question him about his offer to crew members to sign off instead of accompanying the refugees to Cuba. Schroeder had explained that, for this delicate trip, he had made the suggestion for the good of the crew, the line, and the passengers. Over schnapps, he convinced the officer there was no need to probe further. Afterward, the captain prepared his ground meticulously for a showdown with the steward. First, he studied Schindig's personal file, then he consulted a manual on marine law, and finally he created a trial atmosphere in his day cabin by removing all personal effects and clearing his desktop of everything apart from the law book. The final touch was to flank himself at one end of the desk with the ship's first officer, Klaus Ostermeyer, and with the purser, Ferdinand Müller, at the other. He liked and trusted both men. At 9 o'clock sharp, his traditional hour for dealing with defaulters, Captain Schroeder ordered Schindig to be marched in to stand before the desk. If the steward was nervous, he managed to conceal it until the captain began to speak. He was reminded of his legal right to remain silent. If he did, however, the case would be referred to a higher authority. The steward stirred uneasily, and then began to bluster that he had no idea why he had been marched before the captain. Schroeder cut him short. "You are here to explain why you have tried to create a mutinous atmosphere on my ship. I must further tell you that under the penal code you could be sentenced to death by a court, if found guilty of such a charge." For the first time, the captain saw fear in Schindig's eyes. Quietly and incisively, he hammered away at the charge of mutinous behavior. That the Gestapo had found the steward's accusations to be baseless. That his record of service was peppered with complaints from passengers. That, in short, he owed his seaman's ticket solely to his position as party lighter, and even that would not save him from punishment in a court of law. The silence in the cabin stretched between the two men. Schroeder waited, wondering if he had pressed his luck too far. Wondering whether Schindig would realize that much of what he had said was little more than bluff, that if pressed, it was very likely the party would back the steward. But still Otto Schindig made no reply. The captain seized his advantage. He told the steward his behavior was enough to have him dismissed from the ship at the very least. The steward began to plead it had all been a misunderstanding and that such behavior would not happen again. He talked on and on. "Enough!" Schroeder pronounced sentence in a cold and distinct voice. "One more misunderstanding, and I will personally see that you will regret it all your life. Now get out of here and get back to your real job of trying to be a credit to this ship." Afterward, the captain, first officer, and purser debated why the steward had appeared so fearful of being put ashore, and finally agreed that it was probably the reaction of a man desperate to cling to his iota of power. Schroeder believed that the steward would now subside. The captain was wrong. Schindig feared being put ashore because if he was his Abwehr mission would be aborted. Now he summoned the Gestapo firemen, told them what had happened, and vowed revenge on the captain. As soon as the Jews boarded, they would have a chance to retaliate. The Spaniards had already witnessed how harsh Gestapo methods could be. After they had checked into their hotel room, 2 Gestapo men had dragged a terrified man out of a nearby bedroom. Dr. Spanier had inched open his own bedroom door in time to see the Gestapo officers kicking the man down the stairs, while the desk clerk hovered in the background, pleading that he had no idea the guest was on a wanted list. Babette Spanier urged that they check out before the Gestapo went further. They might not be able to find another hotel easily, her husband said. Besides, the fact that they had arrived in the company of their SS benefactor would protect them. "You are always saying we are German to the core," he chided gently. "So we shall behave like ordinary Germans." All the same, it seemed prudent to avoid the hotel as much as possible, and they spent long hours trudging Hamburg's streets. The city was decorated for the city's 750th anniversary celebrations with bunting and gay lanterns, yet an air of menace, of violence, was everywhere. Serried rows of swastikas lined the main streets. The streets were filled with military traffic, SS men, police, and troops. The twins were frightened, and their mother did her best to soothe them, once they were caught up in a mob of banner-waving youths. Only Dr. Spanier's explanation that they had left their party badges back at their hotel averted the gang's suspicions, and they were allowed to pass. "You see," Fritz Spanier told his wife, "we look so German." Babette replied that for the first time in her life, she hated the thought that she was German.